They put their lives on the line to protect our freedom. Brave men and women who help save our country during times of uncertainty. But now it's their own futures that are uncertain, and they need our help.
The job market has left them with no sense of direction.
More than 150,000 veterans live in southern Nevada, many facing new challenges during the pandemic. From isolation to possible evictions that could leave thousands of our veterans homeless.
We're talking about our neighbors. These are real people.
We always remember them. They're not forgotten.
With all they've done for our country, it's time now for us to step in and offer hope for our heroes. 13 Connects is sponsored by Subaru of Las Vegas and America First Credit Union.
Hello and welcome to our Hope for Our Heroes special. I'm Kalina Estrinos. I'm at the Nevada State Veterans Memorial just north of downtown Las Vegas, and today we honor the brave men and women who've sacrificed so much for our freedom. Right now, veterans across the country and right here at home are facing new challenges because of the pandemic. This year, many things they were looking forward to were canceled, including their trip to Washington, D.C. Every year, a group of local veterans travel to our nation's capital to visit the war memorials. Heroes who served in Vietnam, Korea, and World War II get to experience the trip of a lifetime for free, thanks to Honor Flight of Southern Nevada. I spoke with Gloria Saucier, who says it's a trip she'll never forget.
These are the ration stamps that they issued during World War II.
One of the most important chapters in Gloria Saucier's life is one she doesn't talk about much.
A lot of the memories that I have, I haven't even thought about them for years and years.
Gloria is a World War II Marine veteran who joined the military at just 19.
We would help the pilots practice carrier takeoffs and landings, and that was really something.
Her photos and keepsakes of war are now tucked away neatly in this scrapbook.
That was when I was on the airline.
In 2017, she had the chance to add more memories to it, all thanks to what she describes as a trip of a lifetime.
You're treated like royalty on the Honor Flight. There's nothing like it.
Honor Flight Southern Nevada took Gloria and other World War II, Vietnam, and Korean War veterans to see the memorials in Washington, D.C.
The whole thing was so patriotic, and it did take you back in time.
On the flight, the war heroes received letters from kids.
They drew stick figures,
thanking them for protecting our country.
I would never think a child would be aware of, what I did or what any other veteran did.
At the Arlington National Cemetery, Gloria placed a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier, a moment she describes as surreal.
That was the greatest privilege that was offered me, to be able to do that, because it's such an honor. I mean, where else could anyone, be allowed to do something that special?
Seeing the memorials for the first time brought feelings of sadness mixed with profound pride.
I felt so grateful for the Honor Flight because it gave me an opportunity to be with people that lived the same time I did.
To this day, 96-year-old Gloria Saucier remains as patriotic as she was back in 1944. Most World War II veterans speak reluctantly of their time in war, but when they do, it's with deep respect. Same with the Honor Flight.
You just felt so privileged, so, I don't know, it was just the most wonderful feeling of gratitude. I think that's it. And when people say thank you for your service, then you know that it's from the bottom of their heart. And that's something else.
This year, more than 50 Valley veterans were looking forward to the same experience Gloria just talked about. They were thrilled to visit the memorials in Washington, D.C., but the pandemic put a stop to those plans. Even though it's unclear when it'll be safe enough for them to travel, they're still holding out hope, like this veteran here, who's just counting down the days.
Joseph Whetstone sticks only the most important reminders on his fridge, like this note here, with the dates April 17th, 18th, and 19th, the weekend he was scheduled to see the war memorials in Washington, D.C.
Oh, I would have loved it, yeah.
Joseph made a career out of the Navy, serving for 20 years on different ships during a crucial time in history.
I was in Korea when the war ended, and I was in Vietnam when the war ended.
He remembers it all as if it was yesterday.
We got a notice one time that some minesweepers were having a problem, so we escorted the minesweepers in, and we actually ran the fire there, and we took off as fast as we could.
Stories of combat, perseverance, struggle, and loss make the trip to D.C. so important.
They always told me that once you see the memorial and you're there and you look at the results, seeing what actually in front of you, it said it gets pretty overwhelming.
Just weeks before Joseph was set to leave, the pandemic forced shutdowns and stay-at-home orders across the nation, putting a hold on Honor Flight Southern Nevada's biannual flights.
This isn't just a trip to see a memorial. This is more about honoring them and what their service gave to us.
Belinda Morse is the president and CEO of Honor Flight Southern Nevada. She says the trip touches veterans so deeply, it brings out a slew of emotions.
We've had veterans cry. I've had them say, I've never cried so much in my life, happy tears from people thanking me.
But the older veteran population is one of the most vulnerable. One veteran set for Honor Flight this year passed away, and the future impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is unclear.
We're still 6 months away from a flight. With that population, and who knows what the impact of COVID is going to have on them through the winter, it's tough.
Belinda now has her sights set on April 2021, hoping their next scheduled flight can stay on track, knowing how important this trip is for veterans.
When we come home and there's that gigantic crowd at the airport welcoming them home, the tears in their eyes is proof enough that it's an impact that they'll never forget.
Joseph is set for the Honor Flight next year. Once he's back, he plans to replace the note on his fridge with a photo for the trip instead.
It's something I really look forward to.
The pandemic also hit Joseph in another way. His wife is in assisted living, and because of the high risk, he hasn't been able to see her since April. And he's not the only one. Many people have had to stay away from their loved ones in order to protect them. For months, residents at the Echelon Senior Community only interacted with people who cleaned their rooms and brought in their food. Richard Tellier, an Army veteran, had plans to reunite with his graduating class of 1975, but now he'll have to wait even longer.
Last weekend was a tough weekend for me. It was supposed to be my class's 45th reunion, and obviously because of COVID, it got canceled. And we're not sure when we're going to get an opportunity to get together again.
For other veterans, they've lost precious time with family they can never get back. Keith Petzer's brother recently passed away. He was planning a trip to Oregon to see him earlier this year, but had to cancel because of the shutdown.
He is really a great brother. He's a fine human being. He treated everybody fairly. When somebody passes away in your family, you could always have regrets. And one of my regrets is that I didn't go up and visit him more often. So I would say to anybody that if you have wishes that you want to accomplish and things you want to accomplish, don't necessarily put them off.
Still ahead, tens of thousands of veterans here in Nevada are at risk of losing their homes once the CDC eviction moratorium ends.
There are a lot of people hanging on by a thread.
The work one local organization can't complete without your help. Plus,
PTSD starts to come out, the anxiety comes out, and then there's nowhere for them to look in terms of finding employment.
transitioning out of the military into civilian life is a struggle for some, especially during the pandemic. A support available to help veterans find and keep a job when they get home. But first, here's a word from one of our sponsors.
So we have done a number of things that we're so proud of to be able to help support our veterans. Just recently, in the last few years, we have been a partner with Honor Flight of Southern Nevada to escort local veterans to Washington. Just last year, we had 2 managers who teamed up with 80-something-year-old veterans to go back to Washington, D.C. They were part of a larger group with veterans and those individuals' guardians who accompanied them. And there were World War II veterans, there were Korean War veterans, there were Vietnam War veterans, and they went and were able to go and tour and see the memorials in D.C. We love being a part of that program. Some of the other things that we've done, we've been a sponsor for Help of Southern Nevada for a number of years, and that money is specifically earmarked for turkeys for airmen and servicemen and women who are at Nellis Air Force Base. We're so happy to be able to help during Thanksgiving and support that effort there on base. And we also made a substantial donation to an organization called Follow the Flag Northern Utah. This is a flag that is currently hanging in Coldwater Canyon in northern Utah. It is the largest free-flying flag in the country. And this flag that's called the Major is named after Major Brent Taylor, who was killed in Afghanistan serving his country. It's important to remember the sacrifices that our veterans have made for us and our servicemen and women, and it's important to realize that those individuals have done a great deal for our country, and to be able to support them and help them when needed. I would like to say thank you. Thank you for your service. You're valued and your sacrifice is remembered. Thank you for all you have done to preserve our rights and our freedoms.
Welcome back. The pandemic put thousands of Nevadans in stressful financial situations with no end in sight, and veterans perhaps feeling the pain more than most. Transitioning from military life to civilian life can be extremely difficult, and now many are having to do that in the middle of a pandemic. But there is help available to get veterans back on track. I spoke with the VA about a job placement program helping veterans develop the skills they need to find work and find renewed purpose.
The idea of joining the military sparked at a young age for Leroy Hornage III.
It was just something that, is a family thing.
Leroy served 9 years in the Army and did 3 tours in Iraq. Even though he's proud of his service, there are certain moments he would rather tuck away.
It was a little difficult at times. I've seen a lot of different things, it kind of still sticks with me.
Leroy moved to Las Vegas to kick off a new life, but the job search proved to be tough, so he turned to the Compensated Work Therapy program at the VA Southern Nevada. CWT has 2 parts, mental health and job placement. The program helps veterans cope with things like PTSD and homelessness, eventually clearing the way to job security and confidence.
The job market has left them with no sense of direction.
James Edmonds is the counselor for the program. He says the pandemic hit an already vulnerable population. Servicemen and women are now having to navigate their transition back into civilian life during a pandemic. Massive layoffs combined with the smaller job pool is causing feelings of hopelessness among veterans and their families.
Veterans tend to shut down. They tend to go off to themselves. They lose focus. They lose motivation. They lose the lack of sense of actually feeling that they belong. And those are dangerous areas to be in.
Making programs like CWT key in helping veterans get back on track.
The most amazing thing to see is when these veterans first come into the class, to the program, the first week. Their heads are down, their shoulders are slumped. When they get placed over here, it's amazing to see because now they're walking straight, their heads are up, and they feel entitled because they're around other veterans. And they see that, oh, I thought I was going through that issue by myself. You're going through the same thing. So it gives them that energy to see, I'm not doing this by myself.
After completing the program, Leroy landed a full-time job at the North Las Vegas Medical Center. He now works in housekeeping and says he's grateful to be able to provide for himself once again.
If you want more information on the CWT program and other career development resources, just head to our website, ktnv.com. The pandemic has hit us with record unemployment, unpaid bills, and the lingering question, what's next? With the end of the year approaching, the CDC moratorium protecting people from evictions will be gone, leaving thousands of households, including veteran households right here in Clark County, scrambling to find solutions. But now one local organization is asking for your help to keep veterans in their homes and off the streets.
The stack of papers on Stephanie Helm's desk is piling up faster than she can manage.
It's difficult to see the number of requests coming at us.
Mixed in with the daily online applications, it's overwhelming. Behind the pages, pleas for help from the veteran men and women who've served our country.
These folks have put in their time and their service and their sacrifice, and so have their families.
Stephanie Holmes is the executive director of Klein Veterans Fund, a nonprofit helping homeless and at-risk veterans and their families pay their rent and utilities when they get behind. But the pandemic's economic blow created a snowball effect for this group. Now, the landscape of veterans in need changed and the amount increased.
Our traditional client asking for help prior to COVID would be a gentleman in his 70s, probably a Vietnam era vet who lives in affordable housing. And so what we're seeing now is a much younger skew in the age group. We're hearing from people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s with young families at home.
Stephanie's biggest concern is what she describes as the tsunami of requests she's expecting to see once the CDC moratorium is lifted, the so-called eviction cliff.
In terms of the cliff, if you imagine, there are a lot of people hanging on by a thread to the cliff, and the rock is chipping away underneath them with the city and state moratoriums going away, and then the federal moratoriums go away. All of those people then end up going over the cliff and being put at potential risk for homelessness.
Thousands of Nevadans could face eviction, and with veterans making up 10% of the population, they're also bracing for the possibility.
The numbers are just staggering, but we're not just talking about the numbers, right? We're talking about our neighbors. These are real people.
Potentially leading to even more setbacks.
Even if someone can catch up on their rent 1 or 2 months, they probably can't catch up on their rent 8 or 9 months. And then that creates longer lasting effects, right? So now if they've been evicted, that is going to affect their credit. That means next time they go to move someplace, they're going to have to pay a higher deposit. Probably means their kids are going to have to change schools once school is physically back in session. So there are all sorts of trickle down effects that are going to happen at the end of this.
But the problem cuts deeper. Klein Veterans Fund, the place veterans depend on, is also struggling. 2 of its main fundraising events canceled, stripping them of nearly $50,000.
We are in a position where we're having to balance additional need against decreased revenue.
Veterans now slapped with even more obstacles to overcome. But Stephanie is staying optimistic, doing what she can to offer our veterans the hope they need to survive and push through.
What we want our veterans to know is, listen, we see you, we hear you, and we're here to help to the extent that we can, as long as the resources hold out.
Klein Veterans Fund supports Valley veterans and their families when they have no one else to turn to. I spoke with one local veteran who says the nonprofit has been their saving grace during this tough year.
Teddy bears and toys piled up in the corner, pictures of their grandchildren on the wall, the dog waiting patiently in the yard to come back in. There's no place like home. But James Page, his wife Kathy, her daughter, and their 2 grandchildren are financially stuck, and they're afraid the roof over their heads may be gone soon.
We're living on my Social Security and her SSI, so we're living on a very tight budget.
James is a Vietnam veteran who served 4 years in the Marines. He's now disabled. With 5 people living in the home, health issues, the impact of the pandemic, job loss, and more, this family is stretched thin.
As far as I could tell, everybody's, unless you've got a whole bunch put back to carry you through, everybody's struggling.
This month, Klein Veterans Fund helped them out with around $1,300 to pay their rent and get their bills up to date.
We got everything caught up. Still got to pay this month's rent, but we can pay it on the 18th. And then we have nothing again. But it's okay. There's people out there that don't even have that. We're in a little bit better situation. We're not out of the woods by any means.
It's a position thousands of Clark County residents never thought they'd be in. And with the end of the CDC eviction moratorium closing in, many will be fighting to stay afloat, including veterans.
It sucks because they shouldn't be in this situation. The vets should be taken care of a lot better than they are.
Even though it's difficult to stay positive, this family is focusing on the good and spending quality time with each other.
My little granddaughter, she goes, "Come on, Grandma, let's go for a walk. Let's do something." And that's the way we all are with each other.
Through thick and thin, this family is sticking together, and they're hopeful things will improve.
You just got to put one foot in front of the other and keep going forward. and that's what we do.
Still ahead, celebrating all those who served our country even during a pandemic. The special delivery that went out to hundreds of brave men and women across the valley. But first, here's a word from one of our sponsors. Welcome back. Here at 13 Action News, we wanted to offer our love and support to all the amazing veterans right here in our community. Take a look here. This is video of our staff and community partners putting together 300 care packages for local veterans. These packages were stuffed with things like books, masks, first aid kits, socks, thank you letters, and so much more, and then delivered to 6 different assisted living homes across Southern Nevada. Girl Scout Abigail Panariso helped put together the care packages and organize the Veterans Day drop-off. She's been a Girl Scout since kindergarten. Her great-grandfathers on both sides were World War II veterans, and her grandpa served in Vietnam. Abigail says for her, it's all about making sure veterans know they're not alone.
I hope that the veterans know that they are loved, even in this tough time. We're always thinking about them, we always remember them. They're not forgotten at all, and we just love them so much.
And this isn't the first time she's helped out like this. Last year, she bought 8 new wheelchairs for veterans to use while visiting the war memorials in Washington, D.C. with the money she raised selling Girl Scout cookies. Still ahead, more on the Care Package Caravan thanking those who served our country. But first, here's a word from one of our sponsors.
I like to try to describe to people what it means to work for Subaru, to be a retailer for Subaru products. And I've worked for other companies before, other car companies, and their focus is entirely on building cars and selling cars, as many as they can. Subaru doesn't have that same goal in mind. They really do want to change the world. They want to get retailers like Subaru of Las Vegas to be engaged with the local community and make a difference. And that's at the heart of the Subaru Love Promise. Veterans, they're near and dear to our heart. They have sacrificed much for the good of our country, and I believe that we can never really repay them for what they've done. We engage at every opportunity we can. We have an ongoing Salute Our Troops program where we honor veterans that have been nominated, and we go out and just literally make them feel special, make them feel honored, salute them ourselves. We've also engaged with the local community as far as our veteran community in care packages deliveries, and just letting them know we've got our employees and our customers to write cards of thanks so that we can hand deliver those with the care packages. We just look for every opportunity we can to let them know how much we appreciate them. We also extend a Heroes discount to our active duty and our veterans when they're here purchasing their vehicle. We need to be there for each other, be there for our family, and let them know how much we love and appreciate them. And not just our family, but our community. How can we do that? That's a question I ask myself all the time. How can we be better at letting our community know we care and we love them?
Welcome back. On Veterans Day, we got to celebrate our Valley veterans from a safe distance with the Care Package Caravan. Veterans lined the sidewalks as dozens of cars drove by waving their flags, thanking them for their service. I got the chance to speak with some of the 300 veterans who were honored, who say it's nice to feel remembered.
It's a celebration for our heroes.
I think it's nice.
A way to let veterans know they're valued.
It really feels nice to be remembered.
This Veterans Day, the community came together to deliver care packages to more than 100 veterans living in different senior homes across Clark County. Care packages that simply say thank you.
Glad to see people out and giving us praise for our service.
This Veterans Day salute is much different than celebrations in the past. Organizers swapped out handshakes for honking, remained in their cars for social distancing, and drove by with signs on their cars expressing their gratitude. Veterans with masks on, others waving from behind the glass.
I love parades.
Cochi served 9 years in the military. She says she's grateful to see veterans treated with respect and remembers a time when that wasn't the case.
Those guys were really forgotten, and when they came home, people did not treat them well at all. So I'm happy for this, the way it is today.
It's a great honor to be here today.
Daniel Cunningham served 13 years in the Navy and talks about his service with pride.
What does Veterans Day mean to me? Freedom, being proud to be an American.
For these servicemen and women, it doesn't matter how we show our appreciation as long as we try. And remember, veterans are heroes.
Thank you so much for joining us, and a big thank you to all of the veterans who've served our country. To learn more about how you can support our local veterans during this time, just head to ktmv.com/heroes. You're watching the 13 Action News Hope for Our Heroes special to benefit Klein Veterans Fund and Honor Flight Southern Nevada. 13 Connects is sponsored by Subaru of Las Vegas and America First Credit Union.